Now we are going to revise our second unit, that is hardware and software architecture. So talking about the hardware architecture. The simplified architecture we have seen in the first unit. Now in this section we will see two architectures, that is hardware and software. Now definitely the question that comes to our mind, that why we are seeing these two, because we know that embedded system is a collection of hardware and software, so it is necessary to know both the architectures. So the various building blocks of embedded system hardware are shown in this particular figure, that is called as the hardware architecture. So the main is the CPU, then the LCD, LED, function keypad, communication interface, memory, debug port, watchdog timer, chip select, clock circuitry, power supply unit, ADC, DAC and sensors. All these are nothing but the main blocks of the hardware architectures. So we will start with CPU, that is the central processing unit. So the central processing unit, which is used in an embedded system, is one of the two, that is the GPP, that is called as general purpose processor, or DSP, which is called as digital signal processor. So the general purpose processors are nothing but the microprocessor and microcontroller. So as we have seen in our first unit, that the microcontroller has memory and other peripherals on the chip itself, hence it is the best choice for the embedded system. On the other hand, microprocessor is more powerful, but it requires the large number of external components. The internal architecture of a processor is this. So the CPU mainly contains ALU, that is the arithmetic logical unit, which is responsible for performing arithmetic and logical operations. Then the GPP, general purpose registers, these are mainly present in the internal memory. The number of registers varies from processor to processor. The registers contains the current data and the operands which are being manipulated by the processor. Then the control unit. In the control unit, it fetches the instructions from memory, decodes them and then executes them. The control unit mainly contains the instruction pointer, which points to the next instruction, stack pointer, which points to stack in the memory. In the external memory, actually the processor implements the stack. Then the instruction decoder, which decodes the instruction, memory address register and memory data register, which stores the particular address and data of the particular memory. This is the internal architecture of the processor. Now talking about the processor architecture, in addition to manipulation of data, the processor's job is to read data and instructions from memory, read and write data to memory, write data to output devices. So to these functions, the processor communicates with other devices using three buses. That bus is nothing but the collection of signals. So the buses are data bus, address bus and control and status bus. So data bus carries the data between the processor and other devices. Address bus carries the address information from processor to memory, and hence it is unidirectional. Control and status bus carries the information such as whether the operation is read or write. It indicates the address error and everything. So these are the three buses that are used. We can see over here the address bus is unidirectional, data and control and status bus are the bidirectional buses. So based on the number of memory and data buses used, there are basically three types of architectures for the processes: von Neumann architecture, Harvard architecture and super Harvard architecture. So the von Neumann architecture is mostly widely used. In this, it has memory chip which stores both instructions and data. The processor interacts with memory through address bus and data bus to fetch the instructions and data. The hardware architecture is shown here. There are two separate memory blocks we can see. One is for data and one is for the program. Program memory stores only instructions and data memory stores only data. Two pairs of data buses are used between CPU and the memory blocks. The third one is the super hardware architecture, which is derived from the hardware architecture. So it is also called as SHARC. It is slight different, or we can say it is modified version. The data memory is accessed more frequently than the program memory. So in SHARC, the provision has been made to store some secondary data memory to balance the load of both memory blocks, and that's why here the instruction cache is placed in the particular CPU. So these are basic three architectures, processor architectures that are widely used, that is the von Neumann, Harvard and the super Harvard. Now the next is memory, next building block. So memory is divided into two categories, that is the program memory and the data memory. The program memory stores the firmware, whereas data memory contents are erased when the power is switched off. Both program and data memory can be internal to the processor. In microcontroller, both program memory and data memory are on the chip. So the memory chips are classified as RAM, ROM and hybrid memory. RAM is nothing but random access memory, ROM is read-only memory, and the third one is the hybrid memory. So RAM, that is the random access memory. The memory locations can be accessed randomly. It is a read-write chip, as we can perform both read and write operations. There are basically two types of RAM, that is SRAM and DRAM. SRAM is static RAM, DRAM is dynamic RAM. SRAM loses its contents the moment power is switched off, and DRAM retains the contents for fraction of second even though the power is not over there. So that is two types of RAM, that is SRAM and DRAM. Then talking about ROM, ROM is used to store the firmware in embedded system because it retains its contents even if the power is switched off. There are various types like ROM, PROM. So PROM, EPROM. PROM is programmable ROM. So as its name implies, they can be programmed only once. When your firmware is ready, it is put it on the PROM and then mount the device on your embedded system. Whereas in the EPROM, as its name implies, it is erasable programmable ROM. It can be programmed many times because we can erase the data. So to write the data into EPROM, we need a programmer. Also, we need a tool called EPROM eraser to erase the contents, because the EPROM eraser applies UV radiation to the device to erase the contents. Then the next one, that is called as hybrid memory. In that we are having EEPROM, non-volatile RAM and flash memory. EEPROM is electrically erasable PROM. It is similar to EPROM, but the contents can be erased by applying the electrical signal. Then the non-volatile RAM, it is SRAM with battery backup, and the flash memory. Flash memory is a type of EEPROM. These low-cost chips are characterized by their fast read quality. Then the next comes, that is the clock circuitry. The processor has to give the clock input to one of the pins. So to generate the clock signal, the crystal and oscillator are required, and that for that purpose the clock circuitry is needed. Then the next is important is the watchdog timer or reset circuitry. Most embedded systems do not have the reset button. So due to some software or hardware error, it is necessary to reset the processor. So the watchdog timer does the process of resetting. The timer is set to a large value and it is decremented slowly. If the timer value reaches 0, the processor is reset through the reset signal. Then the next is chip select. As many peripherals share the common buses, the processor must be able to uniquely identify the peripheral to communicate with it. For that, the chip select is used. Then comes the input output devices. So in that, the first is DMA, that is the dynamic memory access. So generally, data transfer between input output devices and memory is coordinated by CPU. In cases where handling of input output device by the processor is not efficient, data transfer between input output device and memory can take place directly, and that is known as the DMA, that is the dynamic memory access. Then the sensors and transducers. There are various sensors that are needed in our daily life, like temperature sensors converts the temperature into equivalent electrical voltage, light sensor convert the light intensity into electrical voltage. Then the ADC and DAC, as its name implies, ADC is used for converting analog to digital and vice versa. So the analog signals produced by sensors and transducers have one important characteristic: bandwidth. The analog signal can be converted into digital format by sampling and the quantization. Then the next is the function keypad. Based on the application, the embedded system has to be provided with function keypad so that we can input the data and command. Then the LED, that are nothing but the light emitting diodes. So the LEDs are the most widely used output devices in embedded system. Red, green and yellow LEDs are used for status display and for indication of visual alarms for such events as power supply failure, whereas blue and white LEDs are also available, but they are very expensive. Then the LCD, that is the liquid crystal display. It is a solution which is sandwiched by two sheets for polarizing material. LCD is used to display the status of information or to display the prompts to the user. So these are very necessary building blocks of hardware architecture. Then the communication protocol, that is SPI, which is developed by Motorola. Peripheral devices such as memory chips, ADC, DAC are provided with SPI interface. So we can see the SPI uses four signals: MOSI, MISO, serial clock and chip select. MISO is master in slave out, MOSI is master out slave in, serial clock is S clock, and chip select is used for the peripheral, that is the serial peripheral interface. Then in the I2C, that is the inter-integrated circuit, we are using two wires for connecting the devices. We can see in the diagram the serial clock and the serial data. So the bus is bidirectional and synchronous to a common clock, and it contains two lines, serial clock and serial data. Both lines remains high when they are not in use. Then the next is the communication protocol, that is CAN. CAN bus interconnects to CAN controller between the line and host at the node. It gives the input and gets output between the physical and data link layers at the host node. We can see each and every processor is having particular controller that is connected to the particular processor. Then talking all these parts are nothing but the hardware architecture part. Now we are going to see the software architecture part. The software is in an embedded system consists of operating system and the application software. The operating system is optional. If it is not present, you need to write your own software routine to access the particular hardware. So the services provided by an operating system. Every computing device, whether it is mainframe, desktop computer or embedded system, needs a piece of software so that the user can interact with the hardware. Each job is done by the particular application software. Generally, when we are talking about the embedded system, the job is called as a process generally, or the task. Each task needs memory and needs to access the input-output devices. The operating system has to do the following functions, that is the process task management, memory management, input-output management, providing services to the applications, providing the user interface. OS are divided into two categories, that is single tasking versus multitasking. Only one task is carried out at one time in single tasking. In multitasking, multiple tasks can be run simultaneously. Single user versus multiple user. In single user, only one user can use the system at one time. In multi-user system, multiple users can share the system simultaneously. Command-driven OS versus GUI based. So, in the command-driven, we can directly give the commands, and in GUI based, we are having that particular graphical user interface through which we can give the input output. Now as compared to desktop, embedded systems have the special requirements, that is nothing but the reliability. The operating system is in an embedded system has to be very reliable. Multitasking with the time constraints, it should support multitasking with the time constraint, that it should follow the deadlines. Then the small footprint, as the memory devices has limited capacity in embedded system, they have little memory for the OS as well. So the memory occupied by the operating system is known as the footprint. Then the support diskless system, unlike the desktop computers, embedded systems may not have the secondary storage. Portability, the variety of processors are available for developing the embedded systems, and because of that, the important requirement of embedded operating system is portability, scalability. The embedded operating system may be used for 8-bit microcontroller or 64-bit microprocessor, so scalability is very important. Support for standard API, so the application software is developed using the API, that is application programming interface, which is nothing but the set of the function calls. So the hard and soft real-time systems we have seen. The categories of embedded operating systems are non-real, real, and the mobile. Non-real, the small footprints are there, but they are not suitable for hard real-time application. Like there are the examples over here: embedded Linux, Windows XP. Real-time operating system, these are used for the hard real-time where the deadline constraint is high. Mobile handheld operating system that are used in mobile devices such as palm top, smartphones, and on. So this is all about our second unit. In the next section, we are going to revise our third unit. Thank you.